There will come a moment in your life when the noise around you becomes louder than your own doubts. People will question you, envy you, accuse you and judge you, not because you've fallen, but because you have risen beyond the version of yourself they were comfortable with. This is the hidden proof of your growth. When someone becomes jealous of you, it rarely has anything to do with your true character. Jealousy is a psychological admission, a quiet confession that your evolution highlights their stagnation. You become a living reminder of what they never dared to attempt, what they abandoned, or what they never believed they could achieve. People don't hate your light. They hate that it exposes their shadows. Jealousy is often portrayed as a destructive force, something negative that must be avoided, silenced, or overcome. But in reality, jealousy is far more complex and revealing. It is one of the most powerful mirrors life places in front of you. When someone becomes jealous of you, it is not a sign that you are wrong, too much, too confident, or too ambitious. It is a sign that you are expanding beyond the version of yourself that others were once comfortable with. Most people misunderstand jealousy because they only see the surface expression: coldness, criticism, avoidance, gossip, or passive-aggressive behavior. But beneath those reactions lies a deeper truth. Your growth has triggered something inside them. They see in you a quality they have not yet cultivated within themselves. They see traits they abandoned, desires they ignored, courage they haven't built, or possibilities they never believed they deserved. Your evolution forces them to confront parts of themselves they are not ready to face. In this way, jealousy becomes an unconscious admission. It is a silent confession that your expansion highlights their stagnation, and while they may never say it aloud, their reactions reveal what their words can't. You become a living reminder of what they could be, if only they were willing to do the inner work. This is why jealousy intensifies the moment you begin choosing yourself. When you set boundaries, people who once benefited from your lack of them will resist. When you become confident, those who relied on your insecurities may push back. When you start valuing your own voice, people who preferred your silence may feel threatened. It's not that your growth harms them, it's that your growth exposes the places where they haven't grown. The truth is that people rarely become jealous because of your achievements alone. They become jealous because of who you had to become to achieve them. Your resilience, your discipline, your self-control, your clarity, your decisiveness. These traits confront the parts of them still ruled by fear and hesitation. They see you stepping into your potential, and that inner shift within you disrupts their internal equilibrium. Jealousy is also a mirror of the emotional contracts you once had with others. Every relationship, whether friendship, family, or romantic, holds an unspoken agreement about who each person is allowed to be. The moment you break that agreement by becoming more authentic, more self-aware, or more empowered, the dynamic changes. Not everyone welcomes that shift. Some people were comfortable with the limited version of you, the version that did not challenge their own identity. When you expand, the relationship either evolves or fractures. Understanding jealousy through this lens frees you from personalizing other people's reactions. Their envy is not a reflection of your flaws. It is a reflection of their unresolved wounds. It reveals their unmet desires, their internal conflicts, and their fears about their own potential. You have simply become the mirror that shows them what they are not yet ready to face. And yet, this mirror works both ways. Jealousy doesn't only reflect their limitations, it also reflects your progress. You may not always notice your own transformation. You adapt gradually. You evolve quietly, and you grow inwardly before it shows outwardly. But jealousy from others acts as an external confirmation. Their reactions reveal the magnitude of changes happening within you. In this sense, jealousy becomes a measure, a signal that you have stepped outside old patterns, old versions, and old identities. It also shows you the impact of your presence. People do not become jealous of what is ordinary. They become jealous of what stands out, what threatens their comfort, what disrupts their self-image. Your choices, your mindset, your energy, and your growth become forces that shake the stagnant parts of others. And this is not something to hide or shrink away from. Jealousy, when understood properly, becomes an emotional compass. It points to where you are rising. It points to the areas of your life where your strength is beginning to show. It points to the qualities in you that others secretly admire but outwardly resist. It points to the fearless movement you've made beyond who you used to be. And although it may feel uncomfortable, when jealousy appears, it plays an important role in revealing the truth about your evolution. It marks a turning point, the moment your inner transformation begins to shape your external world. Jealousy isn't a sign that you've done something wrong. It's a sign that you've stepped into something right, something powerful, something undeniable. Jealousy is the world's way of acknowledging your expansion, even when words fail and egos resist. Human behavior is deeply shaped by what lies beneath the surface. The hidden fears, suppressed desires, unhealed wounds, and undeveloped qualities that most people never fully confront. When someone reacts negatively to you, it is rarely about the traits you display on the outside. It is about what those traits awaken within them. People respond intensely to the parts of you they haven't yet developed within themselves, the qualities they wish they had or the attributes they abandoned long ago. When you display confidence, those who lack it may interpret your strength as arrogance. When you show discipline, those who struggle with self-control may feel criticized by your very existence. When you speak your truth, those who have lived behind masks may perceive your authenticity as a threat. This is not because you did anything wrong, but because your presence exposes an undeveloped part of their own personality. Every person carries inner potentials that remain dormant until consciously nurtured. But many people avoid growth because it requires facing internal conflicts, discomfort, and responsibility. When you embody a quality they have suppressed, you unconsciously bring their inner tension to the surface. Instead of acknowledging it, they project their discomfort outward onto you. For example, someone who has never cultivated courage may resent your decisiveness, not because your decisions harm them, but because your decisiveness shines a light on their own hesitation. Someone who has never built emotional resilience might be irritated by your calmness. Your inner stability becomes a mirror reflecting their internal chaos. Someone who abandoned their dreams may envy your persistence, not because you boast about your progress, but because your pursuit reminds them of the passion they once gave up. Reactions like jealousy, anger, criticism, or judgment often arise from this internal imbalance. People are not reacting to your character, they are reacting to the gap between who they are and who they wish they could be. Your traits activate parts of their psyche they have not yet integrated, and instead of embracing that awakening, they externalize the discomfort and turn it into resistance. This dynamic becomes especially clear in relationships. When you begin growing psychologically, emotionally, or spiritually, the people around you are forced to adapt to the new version of you. But if they have not developed the same qualities within themselves, your evolution becomes intimidating. They may view your growth as a threat to the relationship's balance because the version of you they were comfortable with no longer exists. You shift the unspoken agreement of who you are meant to be in their life. This is why people often say, "You've changed," as though it is a betrayal. In truth, you have developed qualities they have not, and your change exposes their resistance to their own development. You didn't break the relationship, your growth simply revealed its limitations. It is also important to understand that people project onto others what they fail to acknowledge within themselves. If someone has not developed emotional intelligence, your emotional awareness may feel like judgment to them. If someone has not faced their insecurities, your confidence may feel like an attack. If someone has not healed their past, your healing may make them feel left behind. Their reaction is not a reflection of your value. It is a reflection of their undeveloped inner world. This psychological mirroring also explains why you may attract certain kinds of criticism during your growth. People often accuse others of traits they secretly struggle with. Someone who feels failure may call you unrealistic. Someone who feels inferior may call you intimidating. Someone who avoids accountability may call you selfish for prioritizing yourself. The accusation reveals more about them than it ever does about you. When you understand this, you stop taking things personally. You begin to see that the emotional reactions of others are tied to their own journey, not yours. You become aware that your presence simply activates parts of themselves they haven't yet integrated: ambition, confidence, discipline, creativity, self-worth, boundaries, or courage. Your existence reminds them of the person they could be if they chose to cultivate those qualities. And while their reactions may be uncomfortable, they serve an important psychological purpose. They reveal the truth about where others are in their development. They expose the qualities people admire but are afraid to embody. They show you the areas of your life where you have grown, because people rarely react to qualities you don't possess. Their discomfort is evidence of your evolution, and their projection is evidence of their inner fragmentation. People's reactions are not random. They are reflections of their own unfulfilled potential, responding to your activated potential. Every time someone attacks you, criticizes you, or tries to undermine you, something deeper is taking place beneath the surface. Most people assume that hostility is a response to your mistakes or shortcomings, but in reality, attacks are rarely rooted in your flaws. They are rooted in the blind spots of the person directing the negativity. A blind spot is an unresolved aspect of a person's psyche, a weakness, insecurity, or unacknowledged desire they have not yet confronted. When they see something in you that touches that hidden wound, the attack becomes a form of emotional self-defense. An attack is not simply aggression, it is a projection. When someone cannot see a part of themselves clearly, they search for it in others. If they fear their own inadequacy, they try to paint you as inadequate. If they feel inferior, they try to belittle you. If they have repressed ambition, they may resent yours. What they cannot accept within themselves becomes the very thing they accuse you of. Their words reveal the territory of their inner battles, battles they are unwilling to face directly. This is why attacks often feel personal, even though they are not. When someone projects their blind spot onto you, they aren't targeting who you are, they're targeting the version of themselves they are afraid to look at. They are defending themselves from their own reflection. They see in you something that threatens their emotional security, challenges their self-image, or exposes a truth they have worked hard to suppress. For example, a person who fears their own weakness may call you weak to avoid acknowledging their vulnerability. Someone who feels threatened by your intelligence may try to question your competence. Someone who has unresolved jealousy may accuse you of arrogance to conceal their own envy. Someone who is terrified of failure may criticize your risks so they don't have to face their own fear of trying. Each attack is a clue, a psychological breadcrumb leading straight to their hidden wound. Understanding this changes the way you experience negativity. Instead of absorbing the attack, you begin to observe it. You learn to see the emotional mechanics behind the behavior. You realize that hostility is often a mask for admiration that a person cannot admit. Deep down, they admire your courage, your confidence, your discipline, your clarity. But because those qualities activate a part of themselves that feels underdeveloped or inadequate, admiration turns into hostility. Their unconscious mind interprets your strength as a threat, not because you intimidate them, but because their own potential feels unreachable. The people who criticize you the loudest are often the ones silently inspired by you. Their attack reveals the distance between who they are and who they want to become. They see the qualities you embody and feel the painful gap between your growth and their stagnation. But instead of choosing growth, they choose resistance. Instead of learning from you, they try to pull you down. Their attack becomes a barrier protecting them from confronting the work they need to do on themselves. This is why the most painful attacks often come from the people who once praised you. When your growth outpaces their comfort, they experience internal conflict. Part of them admires your evolution, while another part fears what it means for their own identity. That tension turns into blame, judgment, or resentment. They are not upset with you. They are upset with the version of themselves they can no longer ignore. Even strangers are not immune to this dynamic. People who attack you online, criticize your success, or mock your goals are often responding to their own limitations. Your existence challenges the narrative they tell themselves about what is possible. Your progress threatens the excuses they rely on to avoid changing. Your authenticity disrupts the identity they built around fear. The attack is not about you, it is the defense against their own potential. Recognizing this does not make attacks pleasant, but it makes them understandable. You begin to see that every negative reaction contains information. It reveals where the other person is stuck. It exposes their insecurities, their hidden desires, their unclaimed strengths, and their internal conflicts. Their hostility becomes an emotional map of the places they have refused to explore. When you understand that an attack is a mirror of someone else's blind spot, you stop feeling wounded by it. You detach your worth from their projections. You stop shrinking yourself to avoid triggering others. You realize that their reactions reflect their inner world, not your value or your path. Every attack is a confession, and every confession reveals a blind spot the admirer has not yet learned to transform. Growth does not happen in the spotlight of other people's approval. It happens in the quiet moments when you choose to follow your inner voice despite the noise around you. The deepest transformations occur when you stop shaping yourself to fit the expectations of others and begin living in alignment with your own values, instincts, and truth. Seeking approval may feel like connection, safety, or validation, but it is actually one of the greatest barriers to authenticity and inner expansion. From a young age, people are conditioned to look outward for confirmation. Approval from parents, praise from teachers, acceptance from peers. These external rewards shape behavior. Over time, the mind learns to associate worth with recognition. You start believing that you must earn permission to exist as yourself, but this habit slowly erodes your autonomy. Instead of asking, "What do I want?" you ask, "What will they think?" Instead of exploring your potential, you shrink it to fit into the comfort of others. The pursuit of approval becomes a silent prison. You censor your thoughts, your dreams, your desires, and your identity in exchange for temporary acceptance. But approval is unstable, unpredictable, and conditional. The same people who clap for you today may criticize you tomorrow if you stop fitting the image they created. When you rely on approval, your growth becomes fragile because its foundation depends on other people's shifting emotions, opinions, and insecurities. True growth begins the moment you turn inward and reclaim your inner authority. It is the moment you realize that the only approval you ever needed is your own. This shift is not easy. It requires breaking familiar patterns of people-pleasing, self-abandonment, and emotional dependency. It requires letting go of the identity you built for external validation and stepping into the unknown territory of your authentic self. When you stop seeking approval, something powerful happens. You begin to hear your real voice. You start noticing what excites you, what drains you, what inspires you, and what limits you. You become aware of your true desires rather than the desires programmed by others. Your decisions become rooted in clarity rather than fear. You no longer adjust your personality to avoid judgment because you realize that judgment is inevitable regardless of how much you try to prevent it. This inner shift transforms your relationships as well. People who only value the version of you that was easy to control may resist your independence. They might interpret your growth as rebellion, selfishness, or change. But their reaction is not a sign that you are wrong. It is a sign that you are breaking the unspoken agreement to stay small. When you stop seeking approval, you stop participating in dynamics where your worth is determined by how well you fulfill someone else's expectations. Growth through self-approval also strengthens emotional resilience. You become less affected by criticism because your identity is no longer rooted in external judgments. You recognize that every opinion others hold is filtered through their own experiences, insecurities, and limitations. Their praise does not inflate you, and their disapproval does not diminish you. You stay grounded in your own truth, echoed by inner stability rather than external validation. When you detach from the need to be liked, you unlock freedom. the freedom to try, to fail, to learn, to evolve, to reinvent yourself, and to pursue paths that others may not understand. Approval seeking limits experimentation because it requires safety and predictability. But growth demands uncertainty, mistakes, and exploration. When you no longer need others to validate your path, you gain the courage to take risks you previously avoided. Creativity expands when approval no longer restrains your expression. You begin to create, speak, and act from a place of authenticity rather than conformity. Your work becomes bolder, your voice clearer, and your choices more aligned with who you truly are. People feel the difference because authenticity has a power that imitation can never replicate. Most importantly, when you stop seeking approval, you discover the strength of your inner world. You learn to trust your intuition, to honor your boundaries, and to protect your energy. You realize that you are capable of guiding your own life without permission from anyone. This realization marks the beginning of genuine empowerment, the kind that cannot be taken away by criticism or granted through praise. You grow the most when you stop seeking approval, because approval binds you to who you were, while authenticity frees you to become who you are meant to be. There is a reason your presence unsettles certain people, even when you haven't said a single word. Strength does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it exists quietly, subtly, in the way you carry yourself, in the energy you bring into a room, in the boundaries you set, and in the authenticity you express. This kind of strength naturally creates disruption, not because you intend to cause conflict, but because your very existence challenges the emotional, psychological, and social structures others depend on to feel secure. Strength disrupts because it reveals. It reveals where others feel small, where they feel uncertain, where they feel unprepared, where they feel insecure. When you walk into a space with clarity, confidence, or calmness, people who have not yet developed those qualities may feel exposed. Your groundedness shines a light on their instability. Your self-respect highlights their lack of boundaries. Your discipline exposes their procrastination. Your growth contrasts with their stagnation. Without meaning to, you become a mirror that reflects what others have avoided acknowledging within themselves. This disruption is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that something is dormant within them. Many people build their identities around comfort, predictability, and emotional habits they've never questioned. When someone with inner strength enters their life, it disrupts that psychological equilibrium. Suddenly, they must confront the possibility that they could be more honest, more disciplined, more courageous, more self-aware, but haven't been. They may not consciously articulate this, yet their behavior reveals it. They might act defensive, distant, competitive, or judgmental because they are reacting to what your presence awakens inside them. Some people find comfort in your strength, but others find discomfort in the comparison it triggers. Even without trying, you shift the emotional atmosphere. Strong presence carries weight. It holds a frequency that unsettles anything built on insecurity, fear, or pretense. Strength also disrupts because it sets a new standard. When you embody self-respect, people who are used to taking advantage of you can no longer do so. When you communicate clearly, people who rely on manipulation lose their power. When you act with integrity, people who survive through dishonesty feel threatened. When you express boundaries, people who once benefited from your lack of them become uncomfortable. Your presence forces them to adjust, evolve, or retreat. A strong presence changes the dynamic of relationships. You no longer bend to avoid conflict, tolerate disrespect, or shrink to make others feel comfortable. This shift can unsettle those who relied on your compliance. They may say you've changed, become difficult, or grown distant, when in fact you simply stopped abandoning yourself to maintain the relationship. Your strength disrupts relationships built on your weakness. Strength also disrupts narratives. Every society, workplace, and family system has unspoken rules about who is allowed to speak, succeed, or stand out. When you break those rules by rising beyond what others expected, your presence unsettles the collective story. Some people will instinctively resist because your success contradicts the limitations that they've accepted for themselves. You become living evidence that their excuses are illusions. Your presence carries disruption because it carries truth. Truth that challenges illusions. Truth that exposes denial. Truth that demands accountability. Even when silent, your energy speaks. People can feel whether you are grounded or fragmented, confident or insecure, aligned or lost. When your presence is rooted in inner strength, it naturally disrupts any environment where people rely on avoidance, pretense, or emotional fragility to navigate life. Strength is not aggression, dominance, or intimidation. Strength is authenticity. It is the courage to be yourself without needing permission. It is the ability to stay centered even when others project their fears onto you. When you embody this kind of presence, you disrupt not because you are trying to overpower others, but because you refuse to be overpowered by their expectations. This disruption is often the beginning of transformation for you and for those around you. Some will rise to meet your energy. They will grow, expand, and learn from the example you unintentionally set. Others will resist, retreat, or attack because they are not ready to evolve. Their reaction reveals their relationship with their own unclaimed strength. Your presence creates disruption because it carries strength, and strength always challenges what is weak, unresolved, or inauthentic.